Hi everyone, it's Rachel Varan with her discussion number 4 for Informatics 685. This week we had several topics to talk about. The first topic is unit testing, and unit testing is software testing where units of the technology is tested. And this is done to make sure that each unit is working. But what is a unit? A unit is the smallest part of the software or technology that can be tested. And why is it done? It is done to fix parts of the software in an early stage, and this ends up being cheaper than fixing units when the software is already up and running. If a test fails, then only that part needs to be changed or that unit needs to be changed because of that specific part that was tested instead of the software as a whole. And then this is just a chronology of how the testing goes. So first is unit testing, then integration testing, system testing, which we'll talk about next. And then lastly, acceptance testing. So next is integration testing, and this is the next step after unit testing, like I just stated. When units are combined into a group and then tested is integration testing. The reason we do this is to test how units interact with one another and find any faults with that interaction. There are many approaches to integration testing. These are just two that I listed, but one is the Big Bang, where all the units are combined together and then tested. And then there's the top-down approach, and this is when the top units are tested separately, and then the bottom or the lower units are tested separately. And then this is just an example I found. I thought it was funny. It shows that there's two units, and you may think that they work together when you're putting the doors together or the windows, whatever they are. But then you see that you can't open the window because they're both getting stuck on each other. So this integration test fails. The next is system testing, and this is when the whole software is tested. And this is to see if the software is yielding certain requirements, meaning if the software is performing the way it's supposed to. And during this stage, the speed of the software can be tested, how the users are allowed on the system without a crash, and the usability testing can be studied as well to see how long it takes a user to adapt this new system. And as you can see in this funny picture that it's not a good idea to run a system without testing it first. Functional testing is done when the system is testing its functions, and this is done to show the results of the system rather than how the system processes. And there are several steps to functional testing, and the first step is to identify the functions that the system should attain or achieve. Next is to input the data based on the system and define the output, then run the test, and then compare the real output versus the predicted output. Stress testing. Stress testing is testing out the software in extreme conditions to see if it can perform under pressure. And this is done to make sure that the system does not collapse under stressful conditions. We have, I work at a rehab, and we have MediLinks as the EHR system that we chart on, that the nurses chart on. And honestly, it's horrible when there's so much people on it at the same time. It always freezes, it crashes. We're always using the charts that we put in the system. So we're actually switching over to Cerner because MediLinks just crashes anytime too much people are on it at the same time. So that could be an example. Performance testing is testing the performance of the system, but what is performance? Performance is promptness, sensitivity, if it has a good network, if it has good security and firewalls and things like that. And the reason we do performance testing is to detect bottlenecks, and bottlenecks are components of the system that affects the system's performance. Performance testing can be used to compare different systems from one another and see if the system reaches user requirements. This could be used when you're trying to decide on which system you want to go with if you're a facility looking for a new system. And last is usability testing, and this is it tests how easy the system software is to use. And this is to make sure that the software is easy to learn, easy to adapt to, easy to work with, and is eye-catching to users and more. Normally, this is done during the system testing stage. And I feel like this stage is important because in my rehab as well, Medilinks, when we began using Medilinks, it was fairly new because we were doing paper charting for years. And I knew it took a long time to get our doctor, the physician, to start charting on the computer because he was so used to just writing orders in the charts and then writing his progress notes in the charts. And we would tell him that it's much easier and quicker to chart in the computer, and it just took a long time of convincing. But even though Medilinks, like I said, it wasn't working out for us, it did make charting easier for the physicians because it's easier to pull up information and pull up H&Ps and pull up other doctors' progress notes and consult notes and things like that. So I believe it's important to have a good system that's easy to use. And then these are my citations, and that's the end of my discussion. Thank you.